I've got
Yeah.
you.
Good.
Okay, there you go then, Lizzie. The floor's yours.
Oh, wow, thank you. Hello, everyone. So obviously I'm Lizzie. I'm a mindset coach, and I've been coaching probably since August. That's when we qualified. I qualified with Ali. I specialise in supporting women to eradicate negative self-talk, but part of what we do together is the positive mindset stuff, specifically with younger people, to help them so that they're not going to go into their adult life with without the tools to be able to support themselves as they go along. And then because of that work with young carers, we were then asked by Bernie and Sarah to come along and work with you guys, because there was a need obviously shown that you need some support for yourselves and for the people that you befriend as well. So that's why we're here. I'll let Ali introduce herself as well.
Hi, so I'm Ali Cutler, and like Lizzie said, I'm also a mindset coach and a meditation coach as well. Like Lizzie, I've been sort of doing this officially since August. I'm also a secondary school teacher. I've been a secondary school teacher for 22 years, and in the summer I'm about to leave my teaching career to be a full-time coach. So I'm sort of in school, and part of my reason for wanting to do this is, as Lizzie said, we obviously do work with a lot of young people, but the need isn't just carers. I've noticed in the past 7 or 8 years in school, the stress and the mental health is a massive issue, not just for students, but also for staff. That's how I ended up in this role. I actually went for coaching myself because I was struggling myself with my mental health from work, and then ended up falling in love with it and doing it myself. So it does work, and I think Lizzie and I have both been at the other side of the table, so we know what it's like. Some of the things that we're asking people or suggesting people do are all things that we've done and done regularly to change our outlook and mindset on life.
Okay, so as you will have all seen, you do have a pack. We're going to go through some of that today. We're not going to go through all of it at once because one, it'd take longer than we've got, and two, some of it is self-explanatory and quite simple exercises. So the exercises that we'll explain are the ones that we think probably need a little bit more, just a little bit more input from us. So I'll put the
I haven't actually got a pack.
You haven't? Okay.
Well, I'll send you that on, Jen.
All right, that's great.
So everything that we're going to talk about today is in the pack, so you'll be able to go over it when you've got it yourself at your own leisure. I will just start sharing it. So, all right. So the reason that we've done it this way is that what we wanted to do was give you an overview of how we work and what we do, and also the opportunity so that you've then got it all there in front of you. And so when you're working with the people that you're befriending, then you've got it there, and you've kind of got, I suppose, like a toolkit that will allow you to sort of support that person if something comes up. So let's go through it. So initially, what we'll talk about is just a quick overview of what the mindset is. So it's just, as we say in here, it's just how we view the world, and it's the thing that we use to shape our views on everything. So what happens is that because we download information all the time, so every single moment of the day we're downloading information, whether that be from our environment, from the people that we're talking to, from driving in the car, going somewhere, there's information overload all the time. And what happens is that shapes how we look at things, and we tend to believe that what we believe is true. Whatever we're thinking, whether we're thinking that we're a good person, a bad person, we think that somebody else is doing something wrong or whatever, we believe that to be the truth. And that's not always how things are, because what will happen is your subconscious starts telling you, so it's, we'll go into subconscious in a minute, sorry, but what we really want to say is that mindset is not necessarily everything that you think. You are not what you think. So we have the opportunities in our lives to be able to change our mindset. So if we think that we have a particular view on something, say for example, I always thought that I was a really bad person, and that everyone would find that out, and then I'd have no friends and I'd be left alone and I'd have nothing. That wasn't obviously necessarily true. And I was able, through coaching, to be able to change that mindset. So it is possible. It is possible to change the way that we think. And that's why we want to support you, to support the people that you're working with, to be able to move through that and have a better view on the things that are going on for them, especially as at the moment they're obviously very isolated. And they haven't been able to get out and do things that they have been able to do before. So even though they were isolated before, they've been even more isolated in the last year, which is obviously going to have a massive impact on their mental health. So Ali's just going to talk you through the subconscious mind and how that works. Isn't that right, Ali?
Yeah. So like Lizzie said, mindset is about sort of changing your perception of how you see things, but not actually always changing it, just being aware sometimes that how we think and how we react to things isn't necessarily the reality, and just kind of observing that. So our mind, if you imagine that your mind is a bit like an iceberg, and
I'll go through and get to
you
that
move
bit.
down, yeah. It's just easy to see it from here. So our conscious mind, our thinking mind, the bit of our mind that we are aware of, that kind of sets our goals, makes us wake up and think, oh, I'll have coffee and toast for breakfast. All of the things that kind of we are aware that we're thinking is what we call our conscious mind. And if you imagine it like an iceberg, that's the bit above the water. It's about 10% of your mind is what you're aware of. Then you have your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind is the part of you that keeps you alive. It's the bit that keeps you breathing without you having to think, oh, I need to breathe. It's the bit that keeps your body moving, that automatically when you think you need to go to the loo, before you know it, you've headed off towards the toilet and you're heading for the loo. All of those things that we do automatically happen because of our subconscious mind. And that's 90% of our mind, because our subconscious mind is a bit like the hard drive of a computer. It's where everything that's ever happened to us, everything that we've ever learned, everything that we've ever known is stored in there. So what happens is that within our subconscious mind, we store a lot of our beliefs, our ideas, our values, things that we sort of hold to be true. But what they actually are things that we've downloaded from elsewhere, different things that we've reacted to, how we've interpreted things. So a lot of time interpretation is a massive influence on the way that we see things and the way that we react to things. So if, for example, say two people are in an accident, you often get one person who really struggles to handle it and the other person who doesn't struggle as much. Not that they've not had the same experience, but it's their interpretation of how they've experienced it. And what happens in our subconscious mind is that because it's subconscious, it's automatic. So a lot of our reactions to something that we maybe see, something that we read, something that we hear, something that we feel, we automatically react in a pre-programmed way, the way that we've always done it. And because it's subconscious, because it happens without us consciously thinking about it, we don't really realize we're doing it. So for me, I was always glass half empty. And I used to joke about the fact that, well, I'm just a bit miserable, really. And I just assumed that that was what I was like. I've been born like that. And that, you know, I always saw the negatives or the impending doom or danger in every situation. But actually what I realized was that it wasn't that I was born like that, but I'd trained myself to be like that, so that every situation I was always looking for a worst case scenario. Not every situation, that makes me sound like I was really miserable. I wasn't, but a lot of the time I was always looking for the worst case scenario. What if? And I just assumed that I've been born like that, and some people aren't, and they're lucky because they're happy and they're not worriers. I'm a worrier, that's what I do. But it wasn't that I was born like that. I just programmed myself to be like that. I grew up in a family of worriers. My mum was a worrier, still is. My sister's a massive worrier, still is. And I'd just grown into the same patterns. And then when I had my own children, I became more of a worrier, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I was never aware of the fact it was a choice. I just assumed that that was what I was and that was how it was. So when I started doing mindset coaching, and I suddenly realized that if I observe the things that I'm thinking sort of objectively, I can see that actually I'm choosing to worry about things, and I'm choosing to be negative about things, but I could also choose and look at the positives. And I can also choose to take a step back and think, actually, that might not happen. So I'm not going to think about it now because it's not relevant now. So it's about noticing and starting to notice how what we think isn't who we are, but it's just how we've been sort of taught, how we've created our reality, and sort of techniques to look at taking that step back and seeing what actually is going on and what is actually us projecting a story or projecting past experience or future worries onto what's actually going on. So as mindset coaches, we spend a lot of time with our clients just really looking at what's going on, what's an emotional reaction to something brought on from things that have happened in the past, what's a story that we're creating, because that's what we often do, you know, oh, why does it always happen to me? Oh, I always have this, I always have, and you know, the sort of the stories and things that we bring to it. So some of the techniques that we'll look at today are just ways that you can get people to just look at what's going on in their mind, look at what they're thinking about, look at whether they've got options to choose to look at things differently, but also it isn't about kind of always being happy, because we don't want that. We don't want to swap all emotions for just feeling a few. Happiness has to come with the flip side of the coin, that sometimes we don't feel happy and sometimes we do. But it's about being okay with both of those, and just knowing that when things aren't brilliant, that you can see sort of the bigger picture, and you don't kind of get hung on to it's always me, I'm always this, it's always this, and it becomes a bigger deal than what's actually really going on. Okay. Is there any questions about any of that? Because it is quite a lot of information.
Like the share there. Has anybody got anything they want to ask, or are you following where we're at so far? Yeah, Valerie, yeah.
Valerie.
It's just the worst case scenario situation. A lot of people, and I've followed track myself, I think, well, if I prepare myself for the worst, then, well, I'm prepared. If I think the worst is going to happen, then when it does, it won't be so bad.
Yeah.
That's the trap I think that people fall into, think, well, you know,
Yeah.
I'd rather be prepared for the worst so that
and I was
I can
exactly
deal
the
with
same.
it or cope with it. Yeah,
I was exactly the same. And I think what we sort of, how we react to that, and I can say hand on heart from personal experience that it does work like this, is that we have a saying that where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're looking for the worst case scenario, you will always find the evidence of what you're looking for. So I was forever preparing for the worst, and then usually finding that it maybe wasn't as bad as I thought, but it was still pretty bad. Whereas now I don't do that, and I think, well, let's just see what happens, or you know, look for the positives. And actually my life isn't any different. I still do exactly the same job as I did before. I still have the same stresses, I still have the same day-to-day things, but what I don't have is me digging myself deeper into a hole. So if you try and remember that, where your attention goes, your energy flows. So if people are worst case scenario, they'll find what they're looking for.
I've managed to combat that myself, but I know other people, you know, it's a good way to explain. It's a bit like the confirmation bias, isn't it? You think, that's confirmed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mind works in stories, so our mind will always look for the evidence to support what we're thinking.
That's right.
And you'd be amazed what it completely ignores to find that one tiny nugget to prove that everything's horrendous or whatever.
It's trying to be able to explain that to somebody else. This should help doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
All right.
So have you got a question?
Susie, hi. Sometimes I think guilt plays a big part with women, that we feel we should do everything. And when we can't do everything, you feel really guilty. Why haven't you done everything?
Yeah, so shoulds are real. Sorry, Lizzie.
No, I think I was just going to say the same thing.
I was going to say should's a really interesting word, because when you use the word should, you're always working from somebody else's expectations.
Yeah.
Who says we should do anything? And actually what we should do is what's right for us. And that might not be the same as what was right for, you know, my mum or my sister or my husband or my kids. So it's that word should. I always sort of, when people say, well, I should be doing whatever, be really cautious of the word should, because it's pre sort of organized ideas from somewhere else. And it might be a person or it might be society. Quite often we have a lot of baggage from kind of, you know, sort of historical expectations and things, don't we? And
absolutely.
So where you hear that word should, I always think about, well, what should I actually be doing?
That's a good idea.
And I think the thing to remember as well is that if you are the person that is kind of holding everything up, you know, spinning all the plates, if you fall down, then the plates fall. And so it's really, really important to make sure, no matter what, it's that whole thing of, you know, if you're on an aeroplane and the oxygen mask comes down, you've got to put the mask on yourself first. Because if you don't put the mask on yourself first, you can't help anybody else. So it's the same principle. So you must support your own well-being before you support anybody else's, which is quite a difficult thing to get your head around if you're like a naturally somebody who will go and support somebody else before you'll do it for yourself. But you must, because if your cup's empty, you've got nothing else to give. So that's the way that I help myself overcome any kind of senses of guilt, because you've got to look after yourself first. And it does feel difficult to start with, because especially if you spend all your life definitely not looking after yourself, but that is what needs to happen, because otherwise you're not going to fulfill any of the roles or things that you want to do in life before that. So
one of the things that I say to young people is to think about it in terms of electronics, like phones or laptops, iPads, whatever you're on now. We don't get angry with a phone because it's run out of charge and say, well, it should be working. I might have used it all day yesterday, but it should still be working. Yet we get sort of frustrated with ourselves when we need to be energized. So if we kind of imagine ourselves like technology, we need to plug ourselves in, obviously not in the same way, but we need to do things that give ourselves that energy. And if we don't get frustrated with an electronic thing because it needs to energize, then we're exactly, you know, we're the same, we're a working, functioning thing. Therefore, you know, we don't sort of say to the phone, well, you should feel guilty that you need a couple of hours plugged into the wall. It's just what it needs, and we're the same.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to move on to the next part. So what I just wanted to just go through, I'm going to read this though, because I think, well, one, because I've written it and I've written it how I would say it. So it's just going to be easier, and I'll make sure then that I've said everything that I want to say, because what is really, really important is the understanding the idea of thought, so I'll read it through and then we can talk about it if we need to. So as we said before, the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between an experience that's real and one that's imagined. For example, I could describe vividly the smell of baking bread and you'd possibly begin to salivate, but that might just be my thing, because baking bread's one of my favourite smells. But equally, I could describe the smell of rotting fish, and that you can evoke those thoughts and those things, and it could possibly, if you really put yourself there, make you start to feel a bit sick. So your thoughts have the power to create a physical response. The fact that you can have an automatic and physical, emotional and cognitive response to events that exist only in your imagination or memory creates an interesting paradox. So on the one hand, imagining or remembering difficult scenarios can have the same effects on our mind, body and emotions as actually experiencing those events. For example, worrying about something that may have happened can trigger anxiety. Remembering an event that made us feel angry, stressed, guilty, hurt, ashamed, etc., can take us right back into experiencing those feelings all over again. And what will happen is when you're feeling those, you'll then get loads of downloads from your subconscious mind telling you, go, oh, remember that other time that you felt anxious? Remember that other time that you were angry? Can you remember when that happened? So you just get tons and tons and tons of information because your subconscious has just done a massive download and gone, these are all the experiences, these are all the examples that we have of these emotions. So the act of thinking about a future or past challenging event creates an increased production of the stress hormones, elevate the heart rate, raise blood pressure, interrupt digestion, etc. That's why it feels so uncomfortable. On the other hand, imagining or remembering positive, helpful and advantageous scenarios will create the same feeling and chemical reactions in our body as we felt at that time. So So for example, if you think about the last time that you had a proper belly laugh, somebody or something made you laugh out loud, like you just couldn't believe. So yesterday, for example, my 6-year-old was, there was some music came on a film, and she was up and she was dancing and she was wiggling away, absolutely not a care in the world. And like then started realizing that other people were watching her and started really playing up, and it was just really funny. So when I think about that, it makes me feel happy, it makes me smile. I can feel that vibration of happiness coming into my body. However, if I remember this morning, my older daughter having a panic attack at 6:30 this morning because she didn't want to go to school, I can then go back into that feeling of anxiety or worry on her behalf. So it's really easy how our mind can push us from one emotion to the other just by the power of thought. So our thoughts and our imagination create our reality. What we think is who we become. With that in mind, and with a few tweaks to our thought processes, the only limit is ourselves. Would you like me to just stop and just talk over any of that? Is any of that, is there anything anybody wants to say about what I've just said? I know it's quite a lot of information in one sheet, but does that resonate with anybody? Can you recognize that in yourself, that if you kind of start thinking about a negative thing, there'll be lots of other negative thoughts that come into your mind, and equally if you're thinking about a positive experience, and lots of more, you'll feel the endorphins of the positive experience. Does that all make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay. Right, so Ali's just going to explain this exercise because it's got a bit of a funny name, and just to make it a bit easier for you to understand what we're talking about.
Okay, so this is called the thought train. It comes in lots of different variations in terms of the same technique, but in different sort of visualizations. And I think the train one's quite a useful one. And the purpose of this task is purely to practice and to get used to observing your thoughts, really, and to get you to see what thoughts are helpful thoughts, what thoughts aren't helpful, what thoughts do you automatically jump to because that's what you've always sort of associated with something. Like Lizzie said, with the kind of going back into past experience, we quite often get carried away in a thought sort of train of thoughts, which then leads us to, like Lizzie says, thinking about, oh, and then there was this, and then there was that, and before you know it, what started out as one simple thought, because you can only think of one thing at a time, suddenly becomes a massive story that isn't currently true or isn't currently relevant. It might be things from the past that we're bringing in, or often projecting fears for the future as well. So the purpose of the thought train is to just imagine that your thoughts, the things that are going through your mind, are like a train pulling into the station. So you might think, for example, trying to think of an example. So you might think that, you know, oh, it's Monday morning and today I've got X, Y, and Z to do. Okay. And that's a train pulling into the station, and you can let that thought go. So you can let the train leave. Okay. Or you can have that thought come into the station, and then before you know it, you've got, oh, well, I hate Monday mornings, and I hate this, and I've got this, and I've got this, and I don't want to do this, and I'd rather do this, and why can't it be Sunday, and why can't it be tea time, why can't it be whatever? And before you know it, you've packed lots of baggage onto that train. Okay, so it's about observing the thoughts that come in and what kind of baggage you attach to it. And then if you think about the thoughts as being like a train, if you find yourself attaching loads of baggage to that that's not helpful, just send it on its way. Okay, so it's about observing, basically observing your thoughts. And you can think of it like a train. Some people think of observing their thoughts as like sitting at the side of a road and seeing cars go past. Some cars stop and hang around for a bit, some cars don't. Whatever you kind of find easiest to visualize, but I picked a train because I thought sort of most people would have experience of that. Not everybody drives. Okay, so notice that the thoughts that are coming in, see what things you're attaching to it, what baggage you're attaching to it, stick that on the train, send it off on its way because you don't need it. Okay, and it's just about really getting good at observing those thoughts as they come in. What's real? What are we actually attaching to those thoughts? What are we then creating into a bigger story than what the actual original thought was, which was it's Monday morning, okay, or whatever it might be. That's sort of the issue for you. And sometimes it's really hard because we can actually be quite a long way down the route of adding all of these ideas and different things to our original thought before we suddenly stop and take a moment and think, gosh, actually, I'm making this into a bigger deal than what it is. And it takes training. Lizzie and I'll tell you now that we still do it. We're better at picking ourselves up, doing it quicker, but you still do it because that's what we've always done. But it's about practicing that skill of observing what you're thinking, what's coming into the station, and just letting it go. And if you start to add baggage to it, you start to add other things, put it in the train carriage and let it go. Okay.
Okay. So as I said, you've got lots of different, I think you've got 10 exercises or 10 tools that you can use for yourself and for the people that you're supporting. But we're not going to go through all of them because one, we don't have time. And secondly, the ones that we haven't picked to talk about today are the ones that are really self-explanatory. But these are some different sort of, probably some different concepts and that kind of stuff. So that's why we're just going to talk about them right now. So Ali is going to explain to you the RAIN exercise.
Okay, so RAIN is just short for recognise, allow, investigate and natural awareness. So again, it's starting to observe your thoughts. The first task with the train task is just to get used to observing thoughts coming and going and then seeing where we attach the sort of the baggage to. This is starting to look in a little bit more depth at the way that you think and to start to notice patterns perhaps in thought, and also to start to notice how thoughts create feelings, physical feelings in our body, but also how physical feelings can then create thoughts in our mind. So RAIN starts for recognise. So recognise what you're feeling. You know, you might be feeling sadness, you might be feeling, more often than not, we don't often look at our thoughts when we're feeling happy. We tend to analyse when we're not feeling so great. So what is it that you're feeling? Can you put it into words, okay? What's going on for me right now? And it might be just that you're feeling a bit blur, or you're feeling sad, or you're just feeling low in energy or low in mood. But what is it? And then what am I thinking? Okay. So it might be, I'm feeling low in energy, and then our mind will create a story around that. Well, I'm feeling low in energy because the weather's not been very nice. Well, is that the reason you're feeling low in energy? So just to get you sort of noticing and thinking about it. And allow, this next one, this A, is so important because, like I've said before, this isn't about trying to make people positive and happy all the time. We don't want to do that because that's not, we don't want to shut off any of our natural emotions because that's not a healthy thing to do. What we need to do to be successful with a good positive mindset is to be able to focus on the positives, but when we're not focusing on the positives and we're not feeling the positives, to be okay and just to be able to allow and accept that today I feel low in energy or today I feel miserable, but that isn't necessarily going to be how you're going to feel for tomorrow, the day after and the day after. So allow yourself to just sit there and to, you know, to just think about what those feelings are, even if they feel like the hard work, just to accept that that's what you're feeling right now and that's fine, and just to sort of sit with it. What we tend to do when we're feeling uncomfortable feelings is we automatically distract ourselves, and we probably don't realise we're doing it, but you'll probably realise or recognise some of these things. So we either get mega busy, oh, I'll just go off and I'll clean something, or I'll do some gardening, or I'll do something that keeps us busy, takes our mind off it, or we might eat something, or maybe just, you know, have a cup of tea and a biscuit, then I'll feel better. Or we might have a glass of wine or a glass of beer, or we might think, oh, I'll just nip to the shops and I'll do a bit of shopping. We all have things that we do that takes our mind off it. And actually what we need to do is not take our mind off it, but just sit with it and let ourselves feel it and then let it go rather than trying to cover it over. So the third one, investigate. This comes a bit further sort of down the line when you're a bit more comfortable with it, but investigate how you're feeling. Ask yourself, what does this emotion, what's it trying to tell me? And it's not about kind of getting stuck in the story, but it's about noticing, what am I feeling and why am I feeling this now? So it might be that something has triggered that feeling, But that maybe it's a feeling that you have often, and maybe it's something that, you know, you might want to sort of explore a little bit more. Is it trying to tell me anything? Can I learn anything from this feeling? Can I learn that actually maybe I don't like, you know, if you're worrying about going to do something, maybe actually that's not a thing that you want to be doing. So maybe what you can learn from it is next time, don't say you'll go if you don't really want to do it. So it's about just really investigating what's going on for you and what those feelings are. And then your natural awareness, that comes with doing the other three things, being aware of what's going on for you, rather than just kind of feeling an emotion like sadness, for example, and then trying to do lots of things to either cover it up or take your mind off it or pretend it's not happening. That natural awareness of what's going on for me, why is it going on for me? And just being okay with that and not sort of getting drawn into the bigger story of it and creating it into a bigger thing that it maybe is. Okay. And just being aware that those feelings pass. If you acknowledge them, just feel them and then let them pass. You don't have to try and hide them or hang on to them and keep sort of beating yourself up feeling them constantly.
Okay.
Is there any questions about that?
Just stop sharing for a moment. Is this making sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you've got the pack anyway, so you've got all the information prior to that to explain why we do the things that we do. And you know, if there are questions, if things come up at the end or whenever, I'm sure that Bernie will be able to message us and we can come back and do anything to catch up. But at the moment, does that all feel like it's making sense? And does it feel like it's something that you can use for yourself and support the people that you're befriending? Yeah. Okay.
I think the hardest thing that, or I say hardest, probably the most different thing is that when you're looking at mindset, it's coming at it from every feeling's okay and being okay with every feeling and not getting dragged down the road of always feeling one particular way. And I think what makes it quite unusual maybe to start with is that actually we spend so much time trying not to feel the hard feelings that when suddenly somebody says just feel it and sit with it, it's a bit like, whoa, why would I want to do that? That's going to be awkward, that's going to be uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more natural it becomes, and the more important it is, because you're not then downloading those feelings into your subconscious to keep coming back up when you have future times when you feel sadness or anxiety or whatever it might be.
And also, this is going to sound maybe a little bit weird, but once you've got really like used to doing it, there's kind of like a little bit of kind of comfort in knowing that you can just sit and go, do you know what, I'm going to feel this, whatever this thing is, this rubbish feeling that I've got, I'm just going to feel it because I've got permission. Because that's the other thing, you know, we were talking about guilt before. Guilt plays into it. And so if you think, oh God, I can't sit and feel miserable because I've got this and this to do, you know what, the misery lasts longer by not facing it. It takes longer for it to process. So there's a kind of weird backhanded joy in being able to sit and go, do you know what, I feel miserable right now and I'm just going to feel that. And it'll take maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, it can take a couple of hours. And once you've done it, you're like, yeah, all right then, cool. And then you crack on and you do something that makes you feel good about yourself. So for me, that might be getting out and going and do something in the garden, or it might be going for a walk, might go to the park, or actually not the park because I hate it, it won't be the park. But you know, I'd go and do something that would remind me that I'm alive and I'm living and I've got stuff to be doing. But it's really important, and it's good to sit and have those moments of feeling a bit rubbish because it goes quicker. Okay.
And I think we've all been on a rain journey, haven't we, in our lives?
Yeah.
All of us, without really subconsciously thinking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think as well sometimes there's a bit of pressure from other people? So for instance, I'm usually quite I'm not extrovert, but when I enter an office, they know I'm there, you know, and I like a usually big smile and things like that. But some days I don't feel like going in with a smile on my face.
Yeah.
And it gets noticed immediately, and it's, Bernie, are you all right, Bernie? And then you don't feel as if you can sit and do that I just want to be miserable for 10 minutes. Just let me be miserable.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think just
And
say that and people
Yeah.
go, oh, all right then. And they do. And I think the other thing, that's a really good point that you've said there, Bernie, because the other thing as well, and I get it sometimes, I have my natural sort of looking face can be a bit austere and a bit miserable looking. And people often say to me, oh, what's wrong, Ali? And I'll be like, well, nothing. And then I'll start to think, or maybe, is there something wrong? And then before you know it, if you're not aware of it, you're suddenly like, well, actually, yeah, do you know what? I haven't. I've got this, and I've got this, and I've this. And suddenly I've just come in with my normal face, but now I've got a reason why I'm miserable. And that's it. You're off on that journey. So it's, you've got other people's and other people's energies as well. If you work with anybody or you're around anybody who's quite negative or quite angry, you pick up their energies as well. So it's been aware of that too.
Yeah, and you'll find, Bernie, there's a freedom in going, do you know what, I feel a bit shit right now, so I'm just going to go have a cup of tea, do my thing, and I'll be back in the room in a moment. And they'll just go, oh, okay. But I tell you what, the freedom that comes by saying I don't feel okay is absolutely wonderful. So do it next time. Let us know how it goes.
And they'll all scamper to every corner because they'll be like, whoa, I don't know what's going on for Bernie. They'll leave you in peace.
Okay, so right, I'll move on to the next part. So we're just going to have a quick chat about power statements. So often these are called affirmations, but in this sense, we've called them power statements because of the connotation of power. So we want for you yourselves to feel a sense of empowerment in using them and to be able to convey that to the people that you're working with. So I'm just going to talk you through, again, I'm just going to read it because this is how I would say it anyway, and you'll get all the information that I want you to have by reading it. So this is the reasons why we ask you to do the power statements in the way that we do. So many of us do repetitive exercises to improve physical health, and power statements are like an exercise for the mind. Positive mental repetitions can reprogram our thinking patterns so that over time we begin to think and act differently. According to researchers, spending just a few minutes thinking about your best qualities can calm your nerves, increase your confidence, and improve your chances of successful outcome. In one study, a short power statement exercise boosted the problem-solving abilities of chronically stressed subjects to the same level of those with low stress. What's more, power statements have been used to successfully treat people with low self-esteem, depression, and other mental conditions. And they have been shown to stimulate the areas in our brains that make us more likely to affect positive changes in regard to our health. This is why we put so much high value on them when working with our clients. They can be done at any time of the day and nobody would ever know you were doing it. Once done correctly and repeatedly, they are brilliant. They're a brilliant quick win for anybody. I was speaking to somebody about, I was doing a coaching session prior to this morning. I said they're like the mental pelvic floors for women because no one knows you're doing them, but they work really, really well and they're really, really effective. So you can we've written this as if you were talking to somebody, but obviously, if the person you're talking to is yourself. So you're asking yourself, what do you want to feel? Do you want to feel in control? Do you want to feel free? Do you want to feel strong? Do you want to feel safe? Do you want to feel that you're loved? Any of those kinds of things. So anything so if they're in a negative situation, so for example, somebody is going to go they've naturally got a little bit, they're naturally introverted and they don't particularly enjoy crowds. That would be myself. And they're, for the first time in over a year, they're going to go and meet some friends and have a cup of coffee in an outdoor setting tomorrow. And they know these people and they're comfortable with those people, but they're really, really, really feeling anxious. So what I would say to them is say, okay, what do you want to feel? So if that person says that they want to feel calm, they want to feel relaxed, they want to enjoy the company of the people that they're with, then I would say to them, right, okay, then you need, before you go to that place, so as you're driving there or when you get up in the morning, tell yourself, I feel calm, I feel relaxed, I am enjoying this experience. Because once we start giving that naturally uplifting, high vibrational thought process, then because we're energy and we work on vibrations, if we tell ourselves something positive, we can't help but feel positive. Conversely, if we're telling ourselves, oh, I'm rubbish, I'm going to hate this, it's going to be really stressful, then immediately those are the things that you're going to be feeling. So it's just a way in which that you can use a power statement to support yourself to feel better in a situation. No one's going to know that you're doing it. No one's got a clue what's going on in your mind. And as Ali said earlier on, we can only ever think one thing at a time. You can believe in your mind, because if your mind works really, really fast, that you're thinking lots of things all at once, but you can't possibly do it. It's just a scientific fact that the brain cannot think two things at once. So if you're going to think something, why not make it something that's uplifting, that's positive, that's high vibrational? So you can use them throughout the day, as I've said. Whenever you feel that a negative thought or the mind's becoming busy, you can use them to ground yourself back into a moment. So if you feel that the anxiety is filling up and that you've kind of gone off into your head and lots of thoughts are happening, then just use them. Just take a breath. So it's often just take a breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Ali will talk about breathing in a moment. But use it in order to support yourself, to ground back into the moment. And also you can make it into a habit. So we talk about piggybacking. So we have habits, we have things that we do all the time. So we get up in the morning, well, for me, I'll get up, go for a wee and clean my teeth. So if I want to do some positive affirmations and I want to feel good about myself that day, or there's something that's coming up that might make me feel a little bit anxious, then whilst I'm cleaning my teeth, I'll be telling myself, I am confident, I am successful, I am whatever the thing is that I need to feel that day or in that moment, I'll be telling myself, and I'll be doing it whilst I'm doing a different habit, something that is already established in my day-to-day life. The good thing about power statements is that whilst they help the person to stay in the moment, they don't have to believe what they're saying. So you don't have to believe that you're confident. You don't have to believe that you're successful. You don't have to believe that you're going to enjoy this thing. But your subconscious has no idea, doesn't know what's true and what's not true. So I'm just going to stop sharing in a minute. Hang on a second. So because your subconscious is like a computer and doesn't have any emotion, it just takes the downloads. So if you're telling your subconscious that you feel good, that you feel positive, that you feel happy, whatever the thing, it's going to believe that that's true. So your conscious mind doesn't have to know it, but your subconscious mind will behave as if that's the truth. Does that make sense? I feel like I've waffled a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I get a bit passionate about power statements and
They are amazing.
And just because it's such a simple way that if you get into the habit of doing it, it's such a simple way of changing your energy levels and the way that you think about yourself. Does anybody actually use them at the moment? Does anybody ever?
I don't use those statements as such, but I do a lot of things like Dementia Friends awareness, and I do a lot of presentations, and if I've been asked to speak for my family at things or things like that, and for me, I just say to myself, Bernie, it's 10 minutes in your life, out of your life, get on with it, girl. And that just does it for me. Even though the nerves are there, I just tell myself, for goodness sake, it's 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, prior to coming on here, I've never met any of you. The only person I know here is Ali. I'm naturally not, I do prefer quiet places. I don't particularly enjoy crowds, and I certainly have learned that in the last year, that all this time I was pushing myself into situations that, I didn't really like, just because I thought that's what I needed to do. So I've learned, actually, I'm a bit of an introvert, even though I might not act like it. And so coming on and doing this and sort of pushing myself out as some kind of person who knows stuff, is like, it can make you feel like it is nerve-wracking. But again, you have to use those affirmations, and in reality, when you get going, you do know your stuff. So but yeah. So
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
If also every time you do it, if you think to yourself, well, I've done it before, so I can do it again.
That's the thing. Yeah.
You know this before, so the next time you do it, there is a time when you haven't done it before.
Yeah.
But the next time you do it, well, it was all right last time. I did it then, so I can do it again.
Yeah. And it's about finding evidence from your life as well. So your transferable skills. So things that you've done in a different area of your life, you can transfer that into that moment of anxiety, that moment of worry, because you will have loads of evidence in your life where things have worked out okay. Naturally, you will look for the negative stuff if you're in that mindset, but you know, there's always different parts of your life where you have made a successful change or you've been successful in something. So look for the evidence prior to that moment. So, oh, hang on, I have done this before and I can do this. So does that all make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, Valerie?
Yeah, so sometimes it can be just as simple as you catch yourself thinking, I can't do this, and just to say to yourself, yes, I can do it. It's just as simple as that, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not to do it, but just to, yes, I can do it, and rather than giving yourself a long affirmation of what you've done before, but just simple.
And the more you do it, what sort of fires together wires together. So changing your mindset is exactly the same as changing anything in life. You know, when you first learned to walk, you didn't just get up and be able to walk. You had to keep doing it until it became a natural thing. So in the same way with our minds, the more that we remind ourselves that we can do things, the more that we go out and do it, the more that we say we think these things or feel them, they become then a quicker neural connection. So rather than us taking ages to get to believe it, actually it gets much quicker because the connection's stronger.
That's smoothing the path.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let me, here we go. So Ali's going to talk to you about breathing.
Okay, so breathing is obviously a subconscious thing. We do it all the time. We don't often think I need to breathe, but actually breathing is a really simple, easy technique that you can use and you can share with the people that you work with as a way of just getting them out of their heads, because mindset is obviously about changing the way that you think, but it's about observing the way that you think and getting yourself out of that sort of kind of emotional sort of jumping onto things and focusing on things. So whether you're feeling anxious or whether you're feeling calm, it doesn't really matter. Focusing on your breath is a brilliant way of just becoming very grounded and very in the moment. Okay, what you often get with people who struggle with anxiety or are chronically stressed or are depressed is that actually they breathe in quite a shallow way, not because there's anything wrong with them, but just because that's what our pattern of breath becomes when we suffer from things like anxiety and stress. But in order to sort of hit the sort of parts of your body you need to enact the positive sort of hormones like dopamine and things like that, you have to breathe deeply. So this is a bit of a double whammy because it helps take you out of your mind, but it also helps you activate those positive sort of hormones like dopamine as well. So it can be done sat, it can be done laid down, it can be done stood waiting for a bus, in the queue at the shop, anywhere at all. And nobody needs for you to be aware that you're doing it. It says here to close your eyes. We suggest that you close your eyes to start with, just so you don't get distracted. But the more you do it, the easier you can do it. And you don't need to close your eyes once you get used to doing it. And it is basically just about breathing in deeply. And if you breathe in through the nose, okay, and as you're breathing in, you concentrate on the breath as it comes in through the nose. So you might concentrate on the temperature, you might concentrate on the feeling as it comes in, or if that's too difficult, just count it 1. Okay, as you breathe in, 1. Okay, and then a deep breath out. So by a deep breath, you should be able to feel it in your tummy, sort of coming in and out, but not to the point where you think, if I carry on breathing in, I'm going to explode, or if I carry on breathing out, this is going to be painful. It's about taking a deep breath, but a comfortable deep breath. Okay, and you breathe in through the nose and you breathe out through the mouth as if you're blowing up a balloon. So if you imagine sort of the action of blowing up a balloon, you do it quite slowly and quite deep. And again, concentrate either on the feeling, or if you can't concentrate on the feeling, just count. In bin 1, out being 2. Okay, and just spend a minute or a couple of minutes focusing on your breathing in and out. So concentrating on the feelings or counting it. If you're counting it, count to 10 and then go back to 1 again. What happens at the start when you first start doing this is that your mind will wander. Okay, most people can't even get to a minute concentrating on their breath without them going off into thought. That's perfectly normal because your mind isn't used to being calm while you're awake. It's used to being busy and having lots going on. So when your mind's wandered, you know, 1 minute you're counting your breaths or you're feeling the breath in your nose and out through your mouth, and then the next minute you're thinking about what you're having for tea and who's coming round and this, that and the other. Don't be cross with yourself because you haven't done it. Just acknowledge the fact you've gone off into thought and come back to your breathing. Okay, and it's just a really simple way of just grounding yourself, being calm, being present, being in the moment. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the longer you can do it for, if you want to. So it's a really simple, easy trick for if you're feeling anxious and you want to calm down, or if you're worried about something and you want to calm down, but also just a really simple and easy trick for just getting yourself back into the moment and just being present and just concentrate. And actually, one of the things that you'll find is that you suddenly realize I don't breathe through my nose ever unless I'm concentrating on it. I always breathe through my mouth. And so for me, I always find it, when I first started doing this, I found it really strange because I had to really concentrate on how I was breathing. But it actually makes you really notice things about your breath and how you breathe. And you know, so it's a really interesting and useful task to do, and anybody can do it anywhere. And you don't have to do it so you're visibly doing it. You know, it's not a, you know, you're not giving birth. You are just breathing in deeply and breathing out deeply. And you don't have to, you know, you can do it. I can do it in front of a class and the kids would never know I was doing it. If, you know, if I was feeling nervous or anxious about something, you know, if you've got Ofsteding and they're walking the room, something like that. So you can do it, but you can also just do it if I'm, you know, sort of stood in a shopping, not that I go shopping these days, but if I was stood in the queue shopping and I'm a bit bored, rather than getting my phone out, I'd concentrate on breathing for a minute because it's far better for me.
Okay.
True.
I'm going to move on to gratitude, and then we can just do some questions and stuff. So intentionally showing gratitude is scientifically proven to increase a person's sense of happiness and well-being. What's even more amazing is this sense of well-being continues for up to 3 months after a person stops journaling their gratitude. It can feel tricky to start with, but the key to success is looking for the small things that make you happy and then adding the why they make you happy. The why is essential for truly benefiting from gratitude. Some people like to start the day with showing gratitude and others prefer to do it at the end of the day. I'm an end of the day kind of girl. As I've said, I think the latter is easier and makes you actively look for things that make you happy during the day. Below is an example of how you could start a gratitude journal, but there's no set way to doing it. A bullet point list, a mind map, a sketch, anything works as long as you focus on the reason why you're grateful. So it's really, really simple. So it's one good thing that happened to me today, something that's good that I saw someone do today. I had fun when. So I'm just going to come out of there.
And if you're not a journaling kind of person, you can just think about it, because the action of thinking about it works just as well. I'm a demon for buying nice journals and notepads and then never ever writing in them because they're too pretty to write in. And why would you spoil it with my crawly handwriting? So I often buy the pad and then think about it and then look at the pretty pad.
It's as I say, it's something that is just really, really simple. And the reason I like to do that at the end of the day is because, and I probably do make my kids do the same thing, is because quite often, certainly with my teenager, she can certainly fall in the hole of thinking that everything's rubbish and you know, and life's hard and all of that sort of stuff. So I will ask her to look for something that she felt was good, something that she did, something that she was proud of, something that she saw someone else do that was good, and something that she, you know, all those kind of bits and bobs. So like we've said, so we have different things in our house that we look at, but the principles are still the same, because it's looking outside of yourself, looking at what else is going on in the world, because we can become really internalized, especially when we're feeling unhappy and especially when we're isolated. You can become so inside your own head that it's difficult to look outside because you've got into the habit of being in your own head. So looking outside for something to be grateful for, or that you've seen someone else do, is a really, really good tool to support you sort of programming how you think. So for example, we've all had, I'm sure, meetings at work when we've had our appraisals and we've been told 10 really, really amazing things that we've done, and then there's one suggestion for change or something that you've got to improve. It's pretty tough to walk out of that and not just focus on the one thing you've got to improve. You've forgotten about the 10 things that you've been told that are amazing about what you're doing, but that one thing is the thing that you'll focus on. So gratitudes are a way of kind of combating that natural thought process. So that's kind of the end of us going through those different exercises. As I say, there's loads of other ones within the pack that you've got, and Jen, I think you'll get yours.
Yeah.
Is there any questions that anybody has, anything that they feel that they need clarifying or anything really? Is there anything anyone wants to ask?
Just say a little bit about the gratitude. Just one
Yeah.
sort of thing that when I first started doing gratitude, I really struggled with it because I felt like it needed to be something quite major. It doesn't need to be anything major, and it doesn't need to be anything that's life-changing, because anything like that, you'll notice naturally. It's about bringing your awareness to the fact that there's really positive things all the time. So I use with my clients an example of on a Saturday and a Sunday morning, me and my husband put the coffee machine on and we both have a couple of fresh coffees, and I'm always really grateful for that because it means that we're not rushing off to go to work, we're all at home together, we can sit and have breakfast together, and that's a really positive, nice, happy environment, and it's a nice opportunity to catch up and to chat and to just have a bit more of a chilled start to the day. It's not life-changing, it doesn't make a whole world of difference to mine and my family's life, but it's something that I'm really grateful for. But if I didn't think about it, it'd just pass and I wouldn't have noticed it. So it doesn't have to be like those wah sort of moments, just the little things. That's what you're looking for, the small little things that make the difference, but would probably go unnoticed if you weren't careful.
Yeah.
Okay, Jenny.
Okay, Jenny,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So yeah, is there anything anybody else would like to ask, or anything that they want to say that you've not been able to? Has anything that we said today brought anything up for you, made you realise anything? Does it feel like it might be useful when you're doing your work with the people that you're befriending?
I think it will be positive with your service users, because they've all struggled, haven't they? And we've struggled as people as well, because we've not been doing what we do as a rule, going into houses, meeting people, doing our social groups and everything. And I think sometimes it is very easy to look on the negative side instead of thinking, well, do you know what? Speaking to Mavis once a week, I know I cheer her up, but my word, she does make me laugh and she cheers me up as well. And sometimes a little thing like when you ring somebody, you always ask them how they are, but I think it's lovely when they turn around and say, and how are you?
Yeah.
And that is making a big statement, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Within the pack as well, we didn't cover it because it's pretty self-explanatory, but there's a 7-day challenge, and it doesn't have to be a 7-day challenge. There's more than 7 things on it, but that's a really nice sort of easy one for each of you to do, but also for you to do with people that you work with. And then you can kind of share your examples as well. So it might be things like, sort of there's one bit, tidy a particular area of the room that you're in that you can see, or take a photograph of something each day that makes you happy, or look at the day unfolding out of your window. I mean, it says look at a sunrise, but if you can't see a sunrise, just look at what's going on, get up a little bit earlier or go to bed a bit later, and just sort of being aware and things like that. That can be a really good sort of starting point for having conversations with the people that you work with about positive things and things that they can look for and do. But it's quite nice to compare then in your phone calls what things you've each found and similarities and differences. That's quite a nice way of sort of encouraging that positive conversations as well.
Okay. So is there any questions or any comments that anybody wants to make? No? All good?
If there is anything, if you just email me, I can email it on to Ali and Lizzie. And we will also, if you would like, we can send you the link for the recording if you wanted to go through it again. So we can do that as well. Okay, so I think will we have a nice big round of applause for our ladies?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll see you all again soon. Is that okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right,
Take care. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, ladies. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.